Welcome to the Superconscious Success Podcast, where Jen and her Superconscious Success family co-hosts bring you valuable content each and every week on topics relating to manifestation, spirituality, and most of all, using your superconscious to manifest success in all areas of your life. Now on to today's episode.
Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Welcome to another episode of my podcast where I connect with spiritual leaders, starseeds, and light workers to help you to connect with your higher self and source to discover your truth and embrace the divine being you're designed to be. This podcast is aimed at helping you to discover the light both outside and within you and eliminate the fear that our 3D reality and our ego insists on pushing onto us. Once we discover who we truly are and we live from a place of love rather than fear, then we can ascend into the higher dimensions. So today I have an incredible guest who discovered the CET Freedom Technique in an attempt to heal her own emotional trauma after breaking free from the grips of a sexual abuser in order to reclaim her own life. Now, if you're dealing with your own emotional trauma and you're looking for a way to heal from it and be in your power, then our guest today will show you exactly how you can do that. Dr. Lisa Turner is a trauma expert and the founder of CET Freedom, and her aim is to revolutionize the coaching and therapy industry so they may also have the CET Freedom Technique in their toolbox. She's the author of 5 books and she's a speaker. She says that her mission in life is to enable individuals to become self-actualized, fully empowered, internally driven, and motivated, and to create tangible real-world results. Okay, so let's get on to today's episode because I'm super excited. I've had the benefit of talking to Lisa beforehand, and she is absolutely delightful, and I'm so excited to have her here. Hey, Lisa, how are you going today?
I'm going great, and I'm so delighted to be here and lovely to be here with all your people.
Oh, and I'm so excited to have you here because there's so much awesome stuff that we've got to talk about. And we're just talking about my different segments and how we're going to try and have you on some of them, because I think that what you've got to share in regards to spirituality and in regards to the soul and in regards to ascension is pretty powerful. But today we're going to actually be talking about the CET Freedom Technique, because this is going to give you the opportunity to tell your story and help to people to heal that trauma that they may have experienced throughout their lives. So how about we start off this interview by saying, Lisa, welcome, and can you tell us your story, please?
I surely will. So I kind of feel sometimes like I should sort of do a little trigger warning because my story is a bit unusual. So I'll keep it really, really brief. And if you want to know more, it's my first book that I've written. That's actually been converted into. We're in the process of turning this into a feature film at the moment.
Wow.
So the story I Loved a Pedophile. So basically, I was, as the name kind of the book suggests, I was groomed and trafficked by my teacher. It turned out it was part of a larger pedophile ring. So it started when I was 12. Eventually, he moved me from Australia to the UK, where I now still live, when I was 15. And he kept me as a virtual house prisoner until I was just before I was 20. So it was just short of 5 years that I was kept in this way. And you know, it's like people often have this idea that I was like locked in, and I really like the lock was an emotional lock. It was a psychological one. He controlled everything I did. He controlled the food I ate, the clothes I wear, who I spoke to, how much money I had available to me, took all my money, pretty much. And so it was incredibly controlling and psychologically damaging relationship. And, you know, in this book, I talk a lot about and it is an edgy book. It is an edgy book. I'll tell you, it's, you know, I tell what happens. There's no, you know, I don't fluff any of it. I eventually managed to escape, and I was working on doing my degree in engineering at the time. And it slowly dawned on me over time that I wasn't functioning quite right. And not only that, it's like, I just assumed everyone woke up every morning wishing that, you know, that they just hadn't. Like I literally would wake up in the morning wishing that I just want to go back to sleep forever.
So you didn't wake up.
And it's like the term I use now is what I call passively suicidal. So I wasn't doing anything active to kill myself. And I think actually passive suicide is way more common. It's like you're just barely doing what you need to do to survive, but you're really not living.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, it was a while before I realized not everyone was like this. I thought this is what life is, right? You know, and until you know different, you don't know different. I then went on a journey to try and heal myself. And I tried everything. I tried everything from the mainstream psychology, psychiatry, counseling, coaching, and the more traditional things like hypnosis, NLP, timeline therapy, those kinds of techniques. And I bundled all those, and I call that the psychological or neurological types. Now, some things worked, some things didn't. I also tried all of the, you know, the wacky, weird and woo-woo and just very different esoteric techniques. So I tried things like shamanic healing and journeying and soul retrieval and Reiki and theta healing, quantum touch, spiritual healing, and all of these esoteric types. And then I knew some of these worked, and I knew that they all had limitations. So what essentially I did was I found what worked, and I deconstructed it and then reconstructed it as a process. And now what we have with CET is a really simple, really powerful and effective 7-step process that clears all of your trauma from the past that you're conscious of. So the process is called conscious emotional transformation. That's what the CET stands for. And it does pretty much what it says on the tin. It consciously transforms your emotions, and it only transforms the ones that you are conscious of. So you can't clear what's out of your awareness. So this 7-step process will clear in a matter of hours what other modalities might take years, if ever, to achieve.
Wow. Look, there's so much we're going to unpack here, because I think that this is something that is exciting. I think it's something that you know, that people need to understand about. But if we just go back to your story for a little bit, you said that you were trafficked when you were 12 years old. How, like, because he was your music teacher, so obviously you're a musical person. Do you play instruments or sing or?
So I was learning guitar, but mostly I was mostly singing was my thing.
Okay.
And I mean, and like the grooming process. So the grooming process started when I was 12. I wasn't fully trafficked until I was 15, and there's 4 stages of the grooming process. So the first is the luring. They just cast the net, see who's interested. Then they go into the enchantment, where they absolutely delight you and they just flatter you and flatter your ego. And then they go into the coercion and manipulation, where they start to drive a wedge between you and others and do a lot of emotional blackmail. And a lot of, if you really loved me, you'd. Now, I was really lucky that I didn't. Normally, that's the stage where people beginning to get prostituted and or addicted to some kind of drugs. Now, I was lucky that didn't happen to me. I think it was just luck. Actually, some of the wisdom of my mum kept me safe, and it's all in the book. It's We won't go into too much, but I was just curious, like with the whole him taking you to the UK, how did that impact your family? Like, obviously they must have felt like there was something wrong, or had he kind of also lured them to some degree? Absolutely. That's one of the things people misunderstand is that I don't know, during the COVID years, there was all this stuff about save the children, because everyone was talking about kids have been grabbed and kept underground. It's like, actually, it doesn't happen like that. The kids that are being trafficked, it's right in plain sight. And the thing that the groomers typically do is they groom the parents. And the way they do that is like, so he was like, oh, Lisa's so talented, she's so amazing. And of course, my mum was like, well, what mum doesn't want to know that their daughter is amazing? Right? Yeah. And so, she needs to spend more time with me. I can really bring her along, and like I could really, develop her talents, and she could really be something, and kind of dangling all these carrots.
So the parent could trust him enough to then go, yes, it's okay for her to do this. So did he say that you were going to have some big career in the UK, or?
So what happened was, so there was a lot of, there's going to be some big career, and I was going to be in the Melbourne Chorale, and wanted to amazing opera singer and all this stuff, and And but mostly what he so he decided he was going to go to the UK, and the way he did this and take me, and the way he did it was he coached me on what to say to my parents before he left.
Okay.
So then so before he left, he was like, okay, tell your parents, can persuade them to send you, but don't tell them it's to spend time with me. Tell them it's to do something different, to do like,
okay, I get it.
So then like once the first yes, and if everyone's done any hypnotherapy training, you'll know it's like you have the yes set. So it's like, yes, she can go to the UK. Excuse me. Then I've been doing so much talking.
I know the feeling.
So first of all, he coached me on what to say. So I got the yes, Lisa can go to the UK. Then he left, and then he started to do lots of emotional blackmail to me, saying he couldn't live without me. He was so dependent on me. I had to come and save him. And he was telling me that he was going to kill himself if I didn't go to the UK.
Oh, no.
I'm 14 years old at this stage, and 14-year-olds don't have the emotional maturity to handle that kind of emotional blackmail.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I start putting pressure on my parents. Instead of sending me, like, it's now about January, and I was supposed to go in, I guess, April. Like, now the pressure is on, you've got to come now. So he just kept writing to me, phoning me, writing to my parents, phoning them, putting pressure on them to send me. Now, my mum, I think she really thought he would do something if I didn't go.
And of course, at this stage, she was wrapped up in him as well, because he had already groomed her as well.
Exactly. And the other thing is it was an attempt to protect me, because her thinking is, if I say no, these are the likely outcomes, the most likely. Like in an ideal world, I'll just go, yeah, sure, that's fine, Mum, and carry on and live my life. And I think we all know that somebody who's been really groomed and psychologically hooked in, that's very unlikely.
Yeah.
The other options were I would find a way to get to him anyway, or just run away. And the other option is that he did do something, and then I would blame myself. And and she's in damage limitation.
Yeah.
So she's kind of thinking, what is the least damaging thing that we can do? Probably to send her to the UK, but with conditions. So the conditions were that it was for a short period of time, and that I had to stay in contact with my mum.
Yeah. And so did that happen? Did that happen?
Did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But then
now,
you were there for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I stayed in contact, and then it was like, she's going to stay a bit longer. And in the end, I ended up staying for 5 years. And it was, there was the kind of the big decision, Lisa's going to go to school here. And that happened after I'd been there about 8 or 9 months, something like that, I think. Yeah, about 8 months.
Okay. And then you went to school, and so you were living in his house, and he didn't have a partner or anything like that at that stage?
No, I was his partner. That was the kind of, that was the, like, oh, she's my girlfriend, but we can't tell anyone. So there was this whole
it's a secret type. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot to go through at the age of 14, to be taken away from your family. And of course, when we're talking about people that are narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, like traffickers, then they try to create that wedge between you and your family, so that nobody comes in like in between you. And so that's a really hard thing for a 14-year-old to have to deal with as well. So I think that, you going through your own process of trying all of the different techniques, and then trying all the esoteric type techniques that the shamanic healing and all the stuff that we tend to promote, really led you to the CET Freedom Technique, to your own process. And I'm going to just ask you a question here, which is a little bit personal for myself, and that is my mum. And I'll tell you a little story about my mum. When she was 14 years old, her mum was murdered. Wow. And her mum was actually murdered by her sister's boyfriend. And they knocked her over the head and they buried her in the backyard. Now, my mum heard screams that night, but she was 14 years old and she thought she was dreaming. And there were two big men. I mean, she couldn't have done anything anyway. She's like 5 foot now. She would have had no hope and could have actually gotten herself hurt. And so she dealt with that when she was 14. She had an abusive father that used to beat them. And she's recently, well, I'll say maybe a couple of years ago, she got the transcript of what happened to her mum, because she didn't find out about it until about 9 months after it happened, because she had run away with a boyfriend and because she came from a troubled household. So she didn't find out about it for a long time, that her mum had actually been killed. Anyway, she got the transcript and she was reading through it. Not long after that, she read through the transcript. Of course, she was in tears. She didn't know the full story. She started getting these really strange pains, like physical chronic pain in her spine. And she's been to doctors. She's had this thing implanted in her to try, and they keep saying it's nerve pain, but nothing's fixing it. And I've often thought, is it this unreleased trauma that she's gone through, that she has not dealt with those emotions, which is causing this chronic manifestation? And I've said to her, Mum, you've got to deal with this trauma. You've got to deal with these feelings, because until you do, it's locked in there. It's causing pain. And is this something that the CET Freedom Technique could help her with?
So the answer is almost certainly, but until we did a full assessment.
Yeah.
And I do want to explain something about, so for legal reasons,
yes,
here in the UK, I cannot claim to cure anything.
Of course, yes.
Any complete evaporation of symptoms is entirely coincidental.
It's the same here too. You know what Australians
like.
It's crazy.
If it happens that you had some symptoms that look like cancer and they disappeared, it's entirely coincidental. That's all I'll say. One thing I will say is that I'm really, I mean, I've had people go into spontaneous remission from cancer, from MS, from chronic. We have great results with chronic fatigue and, like, I don't know if there's a term for it, but like random non-specific pain, like pain that doesn't seem to have a physiological cause.
Yes.
But there's a stage. So CET releases emotions.
Yes.
And there's something we have to do first, which we can do. And it's a little bit more of an advanced technique, but there is a process where we bring it
to
from the physical body into the emotional body.
Yeah.
Then when it's emotions and when it's been, and see, the thing is, it's like, I work on this principle. All emotions are useful. They're all good.
Yes.
Even the ones that we label negative, because they are information.
Yeah.
So, but there's two sources of them. So all emotions are good, and positive, what we would label positive emotions are, so if we just look at something that's happening in the present, our current situation.
Yeah.
If we feel an emotion in response to the present that's good, that tells us we're moving towards what we want.
Yes.
If we're feeling an emotion that's bad, that tells us we're moving away from what we want.
Yeah.
And that's it. It is just guided. It is just like saying, well, it's a temperature monitor. And
it's just like it just tells you whereabouts you are on your vibrational scale at that particular time.
Exactly. Yep. And it's like, I used to with my brother used to play this game, and it's like the warmer cooler game. So we'd hide something and you'd go warmer, cooler. Now, if you lose the cooler, you're losing a whole bit of information. You might be able to guess you're moving away. Yeah. You don't like colder, really, really cold. That's the point of negative emotions. Yes. Now, saying that, but what happens is we have, so the emotion is there to give you information. If we don't get that information, and sometimes information is a bit more complex, then what happens is it can store in the nervous system as a resistance. Yeah. Now, I work on this basis that, so I'm just going to free flow just to get this explanation, because it's when you've got all of the pieces, it's real. It transforms your understanding of emotions. Oh,
absolutely. Yes.
So all emotions are good, even, it's just if we understand them and know how to use them. And when we have, and in actual fact, when we do any kind of emotional healing, the focus is often on releasing the emotion, and that's actually not the problem. That's the symptom.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me explain. So the idea is that we're an infinite. So the idea, first of all, I have these 5 principles of love. So the first is there is only one emotion, and it's love.
Yes.
And that what we feel, and that you're an infinite being, and that love, and, or you might call it love, energy, chi,
Yes.
prana, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. That should be infinite, and it should flow infinitely throughout your infinite body.
Yes.
So we don't actually feel negative emotion. What we feel is
a resistance to the love. Yes. And that's what fear is.
So if you imagine that emotions and energy is sort of intended to flow, just use the metaphor as a river. So it flows like a river, and the block or resistance in your nervous system is like a dam. Yes. So what happens is it builds up on one side, and that's where you get the lake, and on the other side it's depletion. Now, the 2 typical approaches to healing are, one is the neurological, and that looks at analyzing the structure of the dam.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but doesn't
really solve anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And it certainly doesn't drain the lake off, right? No. Then the other approach is things like, EFT, emotrance, Reiki. What they do is, so you've got this high energy here, low energy here. What it does is it taps off the high and raises the low. Yeah. So now it's in equilibrium, because what your nervous system feels is the difference.
Yes.
Okay. Now, but the difference isn't actually the problem. That's the core. The problem is the dam.
Yes.
Yeah. You feel so when people go, oh, I'm going to have my Reiki, and they feel great. And then what happens after you've done an EFT or a Reiki session? A couple of weeks, couple of months later,
back to where you started, because you haven't actually
the dam
dealt with
is still there. The river is still flowing. Yeah. So what CET does is, first of all, it finds where all the little dams are throughout all your entire nervous system. Then what it does is it releases and clears that dam, and then it floods your system with a really high vibrational energy, and it's beyond the higher self. It's typically beyond most other energy healing vibrations that are out there.
Wow.
And the other thing it does is it also raises consciousness, and this is where we kind of it takes you beyond just, oh, I've got a damaged piece and I need healing. It actually takes you to expanding your nervous system, expanding your capacity for energy. So not only are you healed from the past, and not only is that permanent, not only is it as if you never had the problem. That's exciting.
That's the exciting part. Yeah.
Even more than that, it expands consciousness and expands awareness. It expands your energy field. And you guys know about vibration and energy, and it's like, the more energy you have, the more success, the more joy, the more happiness that you feel. Yeah. And so you mentioned fear a little while ago. So I almost have this like a calibration, like an understanding of the different forms of resistance to love. So I start with anger. So it's like, anger is the feeling we feel when we perceive that someone has done something to us which is unloving, or didn't do something that's loving. Yeah. So then, sadness is the feeling we feel when we feel or think we have lost something we love. Yeah. Fear is the feeling we feel when we think we are going to lose something we love, or just love. Yeah. Hurt and rejection, particularly for high vibe, high conscious people, I often say, like, if you're going to become spiritually awakened, get ready for the hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the dark nights of the soul come in, because you're gonna go through a lot. Yeah.
Well, thing is, with CET, you don't have to, but
yes. That's why it's so exciting. That's why it's so exciting. You can skip that whole process.
I know. It's like, well, you can if you want, but only if you enjoy that sort of thing. And and I'm not here to judge. I'm not going to judge. But so hurt and rejection is when you try to give love to someone and they reject it and it bounces back. And that's what hurt is.
Yeah. And that's often something I think that empaths deal with a lot, because it is that, like, we just feel like we just have to give and we have to give, and then not everybody's at that place that they're wanting to receive. And so it'll come straight back at you, and then you feel that rejection, that hurt. Absolutely.
And essentially what you're trying to do is, like, you've got love, you're trying to give it. It's love trying to find a home.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's like there's only one emotion, and it's love. And what you feel as a negative emotion is actually resistance to love.
So what about? Oh yeah, keep going, because we're still going up.
So
the
I
scale.
may be about to answer your question, and then so I go Angus, Atmosphere, hurt, and guilt. Now guilt's a funny one, because guilt is when you think you didn't do something that was loving, or you did something that was unloving. It's like you didn't give enough love.
Okay.
So it's all just love trying to find a home.
And so what about the one that often goes along with guilt, which is that of shame?
Yeah, so I often think, so guilt, I categorize things as there are just pure emotions without any belief attached to them. So guilt is just tried to give love, didn't give love.
Yep.
Or tried to, or did something that was, I mean, most people have got their, their hearts in the right place, but their actions don't always, come out the way they want. So it's like you did something and something bad happened, so you feel guilty about it. Now, shame is, so guilt is I did a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Shame is I am a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am a bad person. And that's the beauty of CET, is because one of the problems with a lot of therapeutics is they understand the problem, they understand the concept of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm a bad person. You can, like, anyone's like, that's a limiting belief. That's going to limit you.
Yeah.
And so just think something different. Well, that, like, it's like, if you've ever had someone say that, you goes like, well, I'm trying.
Yeah.
And I often say, this is like trying to shout at a kettle to get it to boil.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, when you shout at a kettle, and like somebody with just in case I had a PhD in acoustics, I would know this. Mm-hmm. I do have a PhD in acoustics, so I do know this. The acoustic energy that of shouting, would just summarize, it ain't never going to boil a kettle.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So you are kind of giving it energy, but not in a way that is actually ever going to transform it.
Yeah,
and so that's where you need something like CET.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's like you said, and I love the way that you explain that about all of these emotions actually just being resistance to love. Because, part of what I say is that there is only one emotion. That's all there is. And, when we're talking about universal consciousness, when we're talking about the divine only ever knows about love. When we have our other emotions, we've got our egos that are starting to play a part and all sorts of different things happening. So I love the way that you explain that. And I think that once you start to recognize that you can piece it all together in, okay, well, what does this particular emotion have to do with love? I've always said to my kids, look, you've got to express your emotions, because I think a lot of the stuff that happens is because we do hold on to the emotion. And this is why when I was telling you about my mum, I'm like, well, maybe this would be something that would actually be worthwhile for her, because she's at that place that she's still too scared to deal with the emotions of it. Hey there, I really hope that you're enjoying this episode, and I ask that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes that I publish. Let me interrupt the show just for a moment to let you know about something amazing that I have to offer you. I have just decided to make available to you my brand new Superconscious Success Inner Circle absolutely free. Within this inner circle, you will find exclusive content from each of my co-hosts plus myself, and discounts on upcoming products and services that are available within the Superconscious Success Academy and the Universal Consciousness workshops. Within this inner circle, you're going to find not only meditation and self-hypnosis tracks, but you're going to find content on spirituality, manifestation, healing, conscious parenting, business creation, intuition, success, and a whole host more, just by being a loyal supporter of Superconscious Success. Now, head across to superconscioussuccess.com right now, lock in your free membership, because as the membership expands, that is going to be turned into a paid membership. But If you go ahead and you sign up for that today, then you can lock in the free membership price forever. So don't delay, because I can't guarantee how long it's going to be at this price. Okay, so now let's head on back over to our guest interview.
And this is where you get negative emotion about a negative emotion. Or you get a limiting belief about limiting beliefs, or a challenging situation. And I often say that one of my missions here on earth is to transform our experience of emotions. And I think people fear doing this kind of work because for a couple of reasons
will come up.
Well, I think first of all, I think we are socialized, and it's in our culture that there's a limiting belief that permeates the culture, which is this, basically some form of this: if a bad thing has happened to you, you're never going to get over it. You've just, the best you can hope to do is learn to cope with
live with it,
battle through it, live with it. And with SET, we know, like, it's as if, like, the way I talk about, I was friggin' trafficked as a child, for God's sake. I was raped daily, and I can just talk about that. And like, so this book, my first book, I Love to Pedophile, is currently, we're doing the film adaptation of that. So I'm in meetings with guys they are all men on the panel, they're writing the screenplay. And they're so just for as an example, a couple of weeks ago, we were working on that piece of the script that was all about one of the rape scenes that I depict in the book. And so I've got, one person reading my piece, my words as a child, somebody else reading someone else's, and then somebody narrating the scene. So it fades to dark and the camera pans, doing all this kind of stuff. And they're saying the things that, like, actually, like, in front of me, reenacting that experience. Now, for most people, you would go, that would really,
that'd be traumatizing,
triggering. That would be triggering. It would trigger the original trauma. And we're halfway through this, and suddenly the executive producer, and I'm just kind of looking at it, watching everyone, and I'm making notes. It's like, no, we need to change that bit there and stuff like that. And then suddenly the executive producer, he just goes, stop, everyone, stop. And everyone's going like, what? And then he just goes, Lisa, are you okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, I am actually fine. And it's like the fact that I can, just look up from my, taking notes and go, yeah, I am actually fine. Roma, this is like, I am a walking testament that you can recover, and you don't need to avoid triggers, because actually, So, I mean, avoiding triggers doesn't actually solve the problem. It that avoidance strategy. And there's I actually have, on some of my talks, I do a whole list, and it's in my book. So this book, what I'll do is for your listeners, set yourself free. What I will do for your listeners, if you're happy for this, I will buy you a copy, and I will post it to you.
Oh, wow.
I'll post you a copy of the book. So I'll show you where you can do that. I'll give you a link to that at the end.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, and the only thing I ask is, if you love it, write me a review on Amazon.
Absolutely.
If you hate it, pass it on to someone else so they can benefit.
I'm sure nobody will hate it.
Well, people like different things. I don't care.
No, that's right. Wow. That's and that's the thing. For you to be able to get to that place where now you can kind of look at it from a neutral place, and recognize that it was part of your experience. And I think you realize that it was part of your journey that was, I'm sure that whole experience taught you a heck of a lot. And you wouldn't be where you are today if you hadn't have been through that. So, but the SET technique, to be able to bring you to that neutral place, will make people that are dealing with emotional trauma of any kind have hope and know that they're able to be like you and be able to look from a neutral place.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the things that typically happens after a SET session is, and it sounds really, really crazy, but your memory actually gets better. Okay. Because you can, because one of the reasons, so one of the sort of purposes, if you like, of the unconscious mind is to keep repressed painful memories.
Yeah.
And so what SET does is because the pain is gone, and we're not meant to hold on to the pain. And the best analogy I use for that is the thing, like, think about childbirth. Most women who've given birth, you remember that it was painful, but you don't, when you remember the process, you don't feel the pain. And that's actually how it should be.
Yeah, it's because otherwise we'd never have another kid.
And this is how it should be with our experiences. It's like, our experiences, we might remember that they were painful, but in that moment we got the information that said, oh, that's because we're going that way and we need to be going this way, that this behavior is not okay and I need to speak up and enforce my boundaries or whatever it is.
Yes.
And once you've got that information, then you don't need to keep feeling the pain. You don't need to keep suffering. It's just information.
Exactly. And it's just kind of like, it's like you said, it's information to let us know the direction that we're going in. It's really, and that's what we need to start recognizing, is that we don't have to hold on to this stuff. And that's why the CET Freedom Technique sounds amazing. Now, what are the 6 values of the CET Freedom Technique? That's something I wanted to ask you.
The 6 values. Do you mean the 7 steps?
I was looking on your website. It was talking about the 6 values of the CET Freedom Technique.
This is the 6 values of our business. This is how our business operates.
Yep.
So we just have these values where it's just like, we stand for, and I can't even remember them exactly because we just live by them. So
that's right. It becomes normal.
And it's really interesting because I was just coaching one of my people in my group, and I was saying, she's talking about taking on her first employee, and I said, before you take them on, get your values, know what they are, have them in a document,
and live them.
And live them.
And that's the thing. So let them know, let my listeners know a little about CET Freedom. And kind of like how they can get involved if they're wanting to be able to.
So there's I'm really, really clear with people. I have no capacity right now for one-to-one. A lot of people go, oh, and can you work with me? Can you work with me? And it's like,
I got way too much on.
Well, I actually, what the phrase I had, so my I know my purpose is to get CET out in the world, and the best way I can do that is to
teach practitioners.
Teach practitioners. So there's a couple of things that you can do that you can get access to CET. So the first is you can we will gift you full access, and I'm just going to find the link and get it for you. Maybe I'll get it afterwards for you and you can send it out to people. But we just give you access to the home study version, the self-study version of CET for 1 month. So if you get it completely free for 1 month with this little, I do ask for this little caveat. First of all, one of the things we ask is, one of the things we do in the process, it explains the process, then there's a release. And what we do is we ask, we're gathering data to demonstrate how effective it is. And so what we ask is to fill in a little survey. It's just an online survey, and you just rank from 0 to 10 your emotional charge before the CET clearing and after the CET clearing. And at the moment, we're looking at a 98% success rate of it goes to 0. So that's all we're after. So that's why we're giving that away completely free. You can stay in that as long as you like. And, it's, I think it's £47 a month. It's like, I know, $80 a month. So that's a group program. That's the lowest, so you can do that. The other thing that, the other ways that we can work together, I do small, VIP, intimate groups,
like mastermind type things.
We actually just take people through the CET process, and this is where you do get to work with me. I mean, it's not one-to-one, but you work with me more intimately in this closed group. Everything is confidential, and everyone's there to get the clearing. And this is where there will be time for us to, either myself or one of my team, because I have my team of coaches. They're all CET certified and handpicked, really skillful, amazing people. And you'll work with them to, one of the key pieces of CET that makes it really powerful is the first word is conscious. So it's conscious emotional transformation. And it takes it doesn't know that it takes a lot. It takes a bit of skill from a practitioner to bring exactly what is the problem into consciousness, because the emotion isn't the problem. The emotion is the symptom of the problem. So we got to find what that block is. Now, this is not hours of story, hours of analysis. It's some very careful questioning, and they're often, most people, their observation and their experience is It's way easier and way less painful than not only any other therapy that they've ever experienced, but then they imagined.
Yeah.
Her imagination is always going to be, it's going to be really horrible. It's like going back to your mum that, when you're saying she was too scared of addressing it. It's like, well, because there's this idea that you've got to relive the drama, you've got to relive the trauma, you've got to relive the story, and you do not.
Yeah.
No, because that's just what happened.
Yeah.
It's not what happened. It's that how it was installed as a block in your nervous system, and that's what we find.
It was a story you created from it. Yeah.
So that intimate, that VIP group, we actually call that CET Cert Level 1 because it's a prerequisite for the practitioner certification training, and that's the next place that we can go. If it's like sometimes people just want it for themselves, and we used to do it as part of the practitioner, and then we said, do you know what? Enough people, they go, I don't want to be a practitioner. I just want to experience CET. And they didn't want to go to anyone else. They wanted to work with me. And it's like, well, it's natural that people would love me. I know
Of course.
Like I always say, don't fight it. Just surrender.
Just accept it. Acceptance is the key.
So we make sure everyone's clear and they've had an experience before we move them to the practitioner training. Because one of the things about practitioner, one of the things we find is people who've gone through it, they go, this is so freaking amazing. I want to be able to do this with others. And even if they're not a practitioner going out and working as a professional coach or CET practitioner, what they might want to do is do it with their team at work, or other people at work, or even their family and stuff like that. And the thing about the certification training is we have an initiation in there that massively raises consciousness and energy. So.
Wow, it's definitely something that I'm going to be considering adding to my repertoire, because I think that it'll be so powerful. So I have really absolutely loved having you on today, Lisa. I respect your time, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer. But there's definitely so much more that we can delve into when it comes to empaths, when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to all of that. So I'll have you in your own time on some of my other platforms. So how about we finish off this particular interview by letting people know how they can get in touch with you, what your website is, and that sort of thing.
So the website's really simple. If you can see on the screen there, it says CET Freedom. Add a .com on the end of that, and that'll get to the main website. There's a couple of places that are really great to start. So we have an assessment, which is it's just a little ask a few questions. So it's the your emotional resilience assessment tool, and it tells you like where's your resilience, where is it low, where is it high, and stuff like that. And the other thing that's also on the website is under the work with us, you can experience the CET free, completely free. So that's what the program is called, the CET free group coaching. You want me to drop a link to that in here?
Absolutely. Drop a link. It'll all be in the show notes. So definitely do that and get that month free and try it for yourself so that you can see what it's like. And if you want to become a practitioner, then Lisa will show you exactly how you can do that. And this has been so much fun, Lisa. I have absolutely loved it.
Likewise, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to speaking again.
Oh, absolutely. And good luck. You've got a book launch that's coming up. You're doing lots more books. And I'm sure you got plenty more in the pipeline as time goes on. I know I've written a number of books myself, so I know how time consuming it can be, and especially when it comes to launch time. So good luck with all of that. And
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch and definitely have you on some of the other podcasts. So thanks so much for joining us.